So, if you don't know this, right now, I am still currently renting. This space you see right here is not mine. I'm just renting, okay? It's just a room in my apartment. But last year, I actually had a home, and the home was actually paid off. So it's not to say, Tommy, the reason you're renting was because your home was too expensive, you had to sell it. The answer is that's not the reason. But the reason I'm renting right now might make sense for you also, and it might actually motivate you to not buy anything for this very moment. And that's the whole goal for this video. Now, as always, guys, if you guys don't know me, my name is TommyBryson. If you do know me, welcome back to the channel. And also do me a favor and smash the like button. Now, the very first thing, guys, is I want to make sure that when I'm making decisions, I'm making them because they make sense for me, and it's not just because everything else is pushing me to actually do it. Let me explain here, okay? Most people, when you ask them why you're actually buying a home, they say, well, it's the right thing to do, right? You don't want to be wasting your money on rent. Eventually, you want to have your own home that's actually paid off. And this just makes the most sense, okay? Instead of paying somebody else money, how about you pay their bank, but eventually you will actually own the property? And sometimes that makes sense in the long run, but in the short term, it doesn't make sense. So let me be just a little bit transparent here and reveal to you guys the mistake I actually made last year. Last year, when I actually bought my first home, the whole mindset behind it was a very smart one, or at least I thought so, okay? I had spent like about a year almost renting, and I knew for a fact I moved like twice. I did not want to deal with landlords, okay? And my whole concept was if I actually buy a home, well, I'm actually gonna own it. It's gonna be mine. I don't have to worry about a landlord and all this stuff. But what they don't tell you is, yes, you don't have to worry about a landlord, but now you're the landlord. So everything that has to do with this home, like things breaking down because they do, fixing things, remodeling things, worrying about your lawn, all this stuff, that's going to be on you. So sometimes it's more expensive to actually own a home than it is to actually rent. But over the long term, it makes more sense to buy because it's going to be cheaper, because rents go up, your mortgage is probably going to stay the same, and eventually once it's paid off, you only pay taxes and insurance. And the value of the home also increases. It's a good investment over the long run. But in the short term, it was a terrible idea, because here's when you should never be buying a home. You shouldn't be buying a home if you don't know where you're probably going to be living for the next 3 to 5 years. If you just move somewhere and you've been there for like 6 months to a year and you're like, well, I think I want to be here forever, I probably recommend don't buy a home there just yet. Wait at least until you have like 2 to 3 years that you're actually been there and you're like, yeah, I pretty much like this place. I want to be here. My big mistake was, and by the way, I'll be transparent, this was actually in Puerto Rico. I was in Puerto Rico and my mindset was I'm going to be here for at least 5 years or so I'm going to buy a home. But I should have waited a little longer because I was only there for a year and I made a decision that was actually going to lock me up for a long time. What I should have done was said I'm gonna basically keep renting for like another year, like another like total of 2 or 3 years. And once that's done, if I still want to be there, then I can go ahead and buy something more permanent. That is the idea, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, to answer the question, Tommy, when are you gonna stop renting? The answer is when I need a home. That is it. It sounds kind of like crazy, but that is it. It's not that complicated whatsoever. When are you gonna buy a home? When I need one. Now, what is my personal criteria for when I actually need a home? So if you got in value so far, I'm gonna ask for a favor. Subscribe to the channel, because only like 20% of the people that watch are actually subscribed. So go ahead and subscribe right now because I have a lot more content. Now, what is my personal criteria for when I actually need a home? Well, when I'm married, I have a wife, we're either about to or had kids, and my wife is kind of asking me, hey, I want to have a home to set down roots and stuff like that, okay? Now, am I saying that the only reason I'm going to buy a home is because my wife and kids? The answer is no. I also want to own a home, but the answer is when you're kind of just like starting out and you're like younger, or for example, like, you're like single in a way, and you basically don't want to own anything. It just doesn't make sense to actually own a home. Now, here's the math behind this, because most people, they never show you the math. And it's not like renting is a waste of money, because remember, when you're renting something, you're getting a service, right? And there's a lot of benefits. You have flexibility. You don't have to worry about maintenance for the most part. And, everything else has to do with the landlord. All you have to do is pay your rent and, keep the space nice. And that's basically it. You don't have to worry about things breaking down, because that's the landlord's problem, not your problem. So there are obvious benefits to renting. And in the short term, it might make more sense to rent than it does to actually buy. So let's use this rent versus buy calculator to actually show you the math behind this. So what you want to do is go to Google and type in rent versus buy calculator right here. And you want to click on this link right here, the one at the bottom, which is rent versus buy calculator by Smart Asset. It's my favorite one. And it's going to ask you a few questions. Where are you living? Let's say, for example, I live in the Bronx, because I did live in the Bronx last few years ago, whatever. And let's say I got lucky and I'm only paying $1,600 in rent, okay, not $2,000. And let's say the average home price is about, $500,000 or so. And here's the deal, right? I'm single. And I make, let's say I make $80,000 a year. It really doesn't matter. This won't affect the equation. But here it is, okay? It says, if you stay in this home for 11 years, buying is better than renting. So this basically means that for the first 11 years, guess what? Renting is actually cheaper than buying. If you click right here on year 5, if you stay in the house for 5 years, renting is going to be better than buying. Because here's the idea, okay? If you're renting, your total cost is going to be $100,000. And while you're buying, your total cost would be like $125,000, okay? So the idea is, am I telling you to basically go ahead and say, hey, go ahead and just rent forever. Rent for the whole 11 years. No, I'm not telling you to do that, but I am telling you, you do have some leeway here. It's okay if you spend, for example, 3 years renting or 5 years renting. And what would you actually be doing while you're actually renting for this long? The idea is, well, this matters a lot, because what you should be doing is not, for example, just renting and spending all the money you're saving, but no, it's like renting and saving up for a good down payment for the home you actually want to buy until you actually know exactly what you want to buy. So here are some of the things that I'm currently doing right now as I'm basically just renting. Well, first of all, yes, I'm renting, but I'm also saving money, and I have money saved up for when the time comes to actually buy a property. Because guess what? I want to be prepared. But the most important thing I'm basically doing right now is I am experiencing things, okay? Not in a weird way, but I'm basically just trying to figure out, hey, where do I actually want to stay and set up some roots? Is it where I am right now? Is it somewhere else? And then once I figure those things out, right? When I say, hey, okay, I've been saving up the cash, I have the cash to go ahead and buy a home, put down a good down payment of 20% or so. That would be the average goal, right? And I know for a fact this is where I want to set up roots, so where I want to have my kids and everything else, okay? Then, and only then, for me personally, it would make sense to actually go ahead and buy a home. But it doesn't make sense when you say, hey, I don't know if I want to live here, but I just know I don't want to waste money on rent. So then you go ahead and you buy a home that you aren't really even happy with in a location where you're not even happy, and now you're stuck paying a bunch of money every single month. And then you say, well, at least it's real estate, I could always just sell it. The answer is yes, you could sell it, but selling real estate isn't like selling a stock, right? Where it's like this, okay? Selling real estate might take some time, and depending on when you're actually selling it, you might sell it for a lot less money, and you might actually lose out on a lot of money. So if you ask me, you're better off just saving up your money, having it there for a little longer. And you might say, Tommy, well, what about inflation, right? That money is losing value. The idea is money you have saved up for things, it's not about investing, okay? You should have money for investing, but the money you have, for example, for your emergency fund, don't worry about it making money, because it's not for that. The money you have for a down payment, don't worry about it making you more money, because it's not for that. It's for something else, okay? So that's the idea. That's the core. So if you ask me, when am I gonna stop renting? I am estimating. I'm only estimating this, but I'm estimating like 3 to 5 years potentially. That's my core estimate. In 3 to 5 years, I'll basically decide where I actually want to be at, because it's a very important question, and it's a very big decision to go ahead and buy a property. I think most folks don't realize, but people people don't usually buy homes like in their 20s and so on. They usually wait a little longer. Am I telling you it's based on age? The answer is no. It's based on knowing what you actually want, where you want to be at, and having a good down payment to actually put down. If you're 19 years old and you're like, I want to live here because I've been living here my whole life, I don't have plans to live anywhere else, and you have a good down payment and you want to buy a home and it makes sense for you, go ahead and do it. But if you're like 30, 40 years old and you're like, I've been traveling a lot, I'm back home, do I want to be here? Do I want to be here? Then it might not make sense to actually buy the home. The point is, there is no rush. But if you're basically renting for like 30 years and 20 years and 11 years and 10 years and 7 years, it might not make sense because at that point, you're wasting a bunch of money and you're not actually building up any equity or anything like that. And long term, it doesn't make any sense. So guys, that is it for this video. And if you learned anything in this video, the core concept is don't just make decisions because everyone else is doing it. Make decisions because you thought about them thoroughly and they actually make sense for you and you understand what you're doing. Guys, thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified. Comment down below any questions. On top of that, also, thank you for everyone that joined us on Patreon and is basically helping with the channel. I appreciate you guys a ton. And as always, here you guys are. The highlighted person for this week is this person. And on top of that, up here is another video. Over here is my face. And as always, long-term team officially out.